The sky over New York turned purple at morning. Not the gentle purple of dawn, but an angry, swirling violet that made people stop and stare. Traffic came to a halt on busy streets as drivers stepped out of their cars to look up at the strange clouds. Nobody panicked at first. They had seen weird weather before. Some pulled out their phones to take pictures, while others called their friends to ask if they were seeing the same thing. But when the first pod crashed through those purple clouds and slammed into Central Park, everything changed. The pod was black and smooth like polished obsidian. Steam rose from its surface as it cooled, and the ground around it had turned to glass from the heat. Police arrived quickly, setting up barriers to keep curious onlookers away. Scientists from nearby universities rushed to the scene, their instruments detecting readings they couldn't explain. Then the pod opened. The creature that stepped out was nothing like the little green men people had imagined. It stood 9 feet tall, with gray-blue skin that rippled with muscle. Its four-fingered hands ended in claws that looked sharp enough to tear through steel. But its face was the most terrifying part, entirely human-like except for its solid black eyes and the ridge of bone that crowned its head. Similar pods were landing in other cities: London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo. Each one carried the same type of creature. The Kraxthi Empire had arrived, and they had sent their best warriors first. These weren't just soldiers. They were the pride of the Empire, bioengineered super soldiers created for one purpose: conquest. Each one could lift a car with ease, heal from most wounds within minutes, and run faster than any human athlete. Their armor wasn't technology. It was grown from their own hardened skin, making them walking tanks. The first attacks were precise and brutal. A single warrior tore through a police blockade in Madrid like it was made of paper. In Dubai, 2 of them climbed a skyscraper in minutes, using their claws to dig into concrete like it was soft clay. Traditional weapons seemed useless. Bullets bounced off their armored skin, and even direct hits from tanks only slowed them down. But humans had one advantage the Kraxthi hadn't counted on: adaptability. Within hours of the first attacks, military scientists were already collecting data. Every time a super soldier bled, they gathered samples. When one was finally brought down by concentrated fire in Sao Paulo, dozens of experts were flown in to study the body. Dr. Sarah Chen, watching footage of the attacks in her lab at MIT, noticed something others had missed. The super soldiers moved with incredible power, but their movements followed patterns. It wasn't like watching an animal or a human fight. It was too perfect, too programmed. As a neurochemist, she recognized the signs of chemical enhancement. These weren't just alien warriors. They were carefully designed biological machines. By the end of that first day, humanity knew 3 things for certain. First, this was only the beginning. These warriors were clearly an advance force for a larger invasion. Second, conventional weapons wouldn't be enough to stop them. And third, perhaps most importantly, these super soldiers weren't as perfect as their creators thought. As night fell and the purple sky darkened to black, labs around the world began their work. The Kraxthi Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed humans would fight this war with guns and bombs. They never imagined that humanity's greatest weapons would be microscopes and test tubes. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups littered her lab bench at MIT, and her eyes were red from staring into microscopes. But she couldn't stop now, not when she was so close to understanding what made these alien warriors tick. The specimen in front of her was a blood sample from a super soldier killed in Brazil. Other scientists had already studied its basic structure, but Sarah was looking for something different. As a neurochemist, she knew that strength wasn't just about muscles. It was about the chemicals that control them. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her microscope again. The alien blood contained chemicals that looked surprisingly familiar. They were like human hormones and neurotransmitters, just much more powerful. It was as if someone had taken human biology and turned up all the dials to maximum. Her computer beeped with an incoming video call. It was Dr. James Wilson from the London Research Centre. "Sarah, you need to see this," he said, his face excited on the screen. "We just got readings from a live specimen. Their hormone levels are off the charts, but they're stable. It shouldn't be possible." Sarah pulled up the data on her screen. The numbers confirmed what she'd suspected. These super soldiers weren't just alien warriors. They were walking chemical factories. Their bodies produced massive amounts of enhanced versions of chemicals similar to adrenaline, testosterone, and other human hormones. But there was something else, something odd. The chemical balance in their brains was too perfect. In humans, such high levels of these substances would cause rage, confusion, and eventually death. The super soldiers had something else in their blood keeping everything in check. Sarah's hands shook as she typed her findings into the global research database. All around the world, scientists were sharing information, trying to find a way to stop these invaders. Most were looking at weapons or armor, but Sarah saw a different path. "It's like a chemical symphony," she explained to her team later that day. "Every chemical in their bodies is perfectly balanced. But that's also their weakness. If we can disrupt even one part of that balance." The team worked through the night, analyzing more samples. They discovered that the super soldiers' enhanced abilities came from a complex web of chemical signals. Their incredible strength, controlled by modified adrenaline, their rapid healing, triggered by engineered growth hormones, their aggressive behavior, managed by brain chemicals similar to human neurotransmitters. Most importantly, they found that all these systems were connected. Like a house of cards, disturbing one part could make the whole thing collapse. A young lab assistant named Mike pointed out something crucial. "Dr. Chen, look at these molecular structures. They're almost exactly like human hormones, just tweaked a bit. It's like whoever made these soldiers used human biology as a template." That was the breakthrough they needed. If the super soldiers' chemical systems were based on human biology, then human methods could affect them. Sarah's team began testing different compounds, looking for something that could interfere with the aliens' perfect chemical balance. By the end of the week, they had created a synthetic hormone that could bind to the super soldiers' chemical receptors. In the lab, it made alien blood samples break down within minutes. "Send this to every lab in the network," Sarah ordered, her tired face showing the first real smile in days. "And get me military command. I think we just found their weak spot." The cracks the Empire had made their super soldiers too perfect, too controlled. They never considered that this perfect control could be turned against them. After all, who would suspect that humanity's messy, imperfect understanding of biochemistry would be the key to defeating their flawless warriors? Buenos Aires was burning. 3 super soldiers had attacked the city's center that morning, and the Argentine military could only watch as they tore through concrete barriers like paper. Smoke rose from burning vehicles, and the sound of distant explosions echoed through empty streets. But today would be different. Hidden in a secure basement lab, Dr. Chen watched multiple screens showing the battle above. She had flown in from MIT 2 days ago with her team, and a large metal case containing their secret weapon, the hormone disruptor. "The delivery system is ready," a technician reported, checking the specialized gas canisters. They had modified crowd control equipment to spray their chemical compound instead of tear gas. It was a simple plan, maybe too simple, but it was all they had. Military commanders from 6 countries crowded around the monitors. If this worked in Buenos Aires, they would immediately launch similar operations in other cities. If it failed, well, nobody wanted to think about that. "Target approaching checkpoint Alpha," a soldier announced over the radio. On the main screen, they could see one of the super soldiers walking down the avenue, its massive frame leaving claw marks in the asphalt with each step. Dr. Chen took a deep breath, released the compound. Hidden sprayers activated along the street, releasing a fine mist into the air. The super soldier walked right into it, probably assuming it was dust or smoke from the destruction around it. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the warrior stopped walking. Its movements became jerky and uncertain. The super soldier looked at its hands as if seeing them for the first time. Behind it, the other two warriors were showing similar signs of confusion. "It's working," Dr. Chen whispered, gripping the edge of her desk. "Their hormone levels are crashing. The compound is disrupting their control systems." On the screens, the scene was extraordinary. The once fearsome warriors were now stumbling like drunk people. One sat down heavily on the ground, while another leaned against a wall, shaking its head as if trying to clear it. "Move in the capture teams," the commander ordered. Now, special forces teams that had been waiting nearby rushed forward. The super soldiers, their enhanced abilities dampened by the chemical compound, couldn't resist effectively. Within minutes, all three were secured with specially designed restraints. News of the success spread quickly. Within hours, similar operations were launched in cities across the globe. The compound was loaded into everything from fire trucks to crop dusting planes. Super soldiers that had seemed unstoppable just days ago were being captured by the dozens. In her lab, Dr. Chen was already working on the next phase. The captured warriors were being kept sedated while she studied how their bodies adapted to the compound. What she found amazed her. "Their systems are trying to rebalance," she explained to military officials. "But instead of fighting our compound, they're integrating it. It's like their bodies are rewriting their own chemistry." One general asked the question everyone was thinking: can we control them? Dr. Chen looked at her latest test results. "Better than that. We can reprogram them. Their bodies are so perfectly engineered that we can actually modify their basic drives and instincts. They'll keep their strength and abilities. But..." She paused, still amazed by what she was about to say. "We can make them want to serve us instead of kill us." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just found a way to defeat the super soldiers. They had found a way to turn them into allies. The Kraxthi Empire's perfect warriors were about to become their worst nightmare. The captured super soldier lay perfectly still on the examination table, its massive chest rising and falling steadily under the influence of powerful sedatives. Dr. Chen stood nearby, watching as her team prepared for the most ambitious experiment yet. "Neural mapping complete," announced Dr. Rodriguez, her chief assistant. On the screens above them, detailed scans showed the alien warrior's brain structure. It was remarkably similar to a human brain, but with key differences that explained their enhanced abilities and aggressive nature. 3 weeks had passed since the successful operation in Buenos Aires. Labs around the world now held captured super soldiers, but Dr. Chen's team was the first to attempt something this bold. They weren't just going to suppress the warriors' enhanced abilities. They were going to reprogram them. "Look at this," she said, pointing to one of the scans. "Their genetic code isn't just enhanced, it's designed to be modified. It's like they left USB ports in their DNA." The team had discovered something extraordinary about the super soldiers. The Kraxthi hadn't just made them stronger and faster. They had made them adaptable. Their genetic code could be rewritten on the fly, allowing them to adjust to different planetary conditions. But this feature had an unexpected weakness. It meant humans could rewrite their code too. Dr. Chen had created a special virus for this purpose. Unlike normal viruses that cause diseases, this one was designed to deliver new genetic instructions. It would target specific parts of the super soldier's DNA, changing the warrior's basic programming while leaving their enhanced abilities intact. "Beginning viral insertion," announced the technician. Through a series of tubes, the modified virus entered the super soldier's bloodstream. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then the monitors started beeping. "Genetic modification is spreading," Dr. Rodriguez reported excitedly. "The virus is being accepted. Their adaptive systems are treating our changes as natural updates." The next few hours were tense as they watched the virus do its work. The super soldier's body temperature rose slightly, then stabilized. Its brain patterns shifted, then settled into new patterns. Most importantly, the aggression centers in its brain were being rewired. When they finally reduced the sedation, Everyone held their breath. The super soldier's solid black eyes opened slowly. It looked around the room, taking in the scientists and armed guards. In the past, this would have triggered an immediate violent response. Instead, it spoke. Its voice was deep and gravelly, but the words were clear. "How may I serve?" The room erupted in celebration. Dr. Chen's hands were shaking as she noted the time and date. They had done it. They had successfully reprogrammed a super soldier while maintaining its enhanced capabilities. Over the next few days, they ran tests on their modified warrior. It maintained all its strength and healing abilities, but now these powers were under human control. The soldier could still lift cars and heal from wounds, but it did these things to help humans, not hurt them. "We're calling it neural rewriting," Dr. Chen explained to military leaders the following week. "We can modify any captured super soldier the same way. And here's the best part. The changes are permanent and can be passed on if they reproduce." The implications were enormous. Every super soldier they captured could be transformed from an enemy into an ally. The Kraxthi had sent their warriors to destroy humanity, but instead they had given humans the ultimate weapon, an army that could be turned against its creators. As Dr. Chen watched their first successful subject helping to move heavy equipment around the lab, she couldn't help but smile. The Empire's perfect warriors were about to become humanity's perfect defenders. The first warning came from one of the reprogrammed super soldiers. It was standing guard outside Dr. Chen's lab when it suddenly looked up at the sky and growled, "They're coming." The Void Guard. Within hours, new ships appeared in Earth's orbit. Unlike the crude pods that had brought the super soldiers, these were sleek battleships made of dark metal that seemed to swallow light. They carried the elite warriors of the Kraxthi Empire, the Void Guard. These weren't simple biological super soldiers. The Void Guard were cybernetically enhanced commanders, their bodies a perfect fusion of alien flesh and advanced machinery. Most importantly, they were immune to the chemical controls that humans had used against their regular troops. "They're different," explained Kurl, one of the first reprogrammed super soldiers who now worked with Dr. Chen. The Void Guard rejected biological enhancement. They chose machines instead. That's why they looked down on us. The first Void Guard landing happened in Dubai. 3 of them descended from their ship in armor that looked like liquid metal. Each was slightly shorter than a super soldier, but moved with terrifying precision. When local forces tried to use the hormone disruptor spray, the Void Guard simply walked through it, their mechanical parts unaffected. But they weren't prepared for what they found. Instead of chaos and destruction, they saw their own super soldiers working alongside humans. In New York, a warrior that should have been destroying buildings was helping to build them. In Tokyo, another was assisting with disaster relief. In London, several worked as guards for important facilities. Impossible, the Void Guard commander transmitted back to their fleet. "The bio troops have been compromised." Dr. Chen watched all this from her command center, surrounded by screens showing feeds from around the world. Next to her, Kurl explained what the Void Guard were seeing. "They never understood us," Kurl said. "They thought we were just weapons. But humans made us more." The Void Guard tried to attack several facilities, hoping to eliminate what they saw as corrupted units, but they discovered another surprise. The reprogrammed super soldiers were better fighters than before. Working willingly with humans, understanding strategy and tactics, they were more effective than when they were simply following Imperial programming. In Singapore, a Void Guard unit encountered 3 modified super soldiers protecting a research facility. The battle that followed was like nothing humans had ever seen. The Void Guard's technological perfection clashed with the super soldiers' enhanced biology and human tactical training. In the end, the modified warriors won. "You've made them stronger," one captured Void Guard commander admitted during interrogation. Its cybernetic eyes glowed with a mixture of fear and respect. Not just physically. They think now. They choose. "How did you do this?" Dr. Chen, watching the interrogation, knew the answer but kept quiet. The Kraxthi, with all their technological advancement, had never understood the power of free will. They had created perfect soldiers, but treated them like mindless weapons. Humans had given them something the Empire never had: choice. As reports came in of Void Guard retreats across the globe, Dr. Chen looked at Corral. The super soldier stood proudly in a new uniform designed by humans, its black eyes showing intelligence and determination that would have been impossible weeks ago. The Empire had sent their elite to investigate a problem. Instead, they had discovered that their perfect weapon now had perfect loyalty to Earth. The Kraxthi diplomatic vessel was beautiful in a terrifying way. It hung over New York like a giant black diamond, its surface reflecting the city lights below. Inside the United Nations building, Dr. Chen sat with world leaders and military commanders, waiting for the alien diplomats to arrive. Curl stood behind her chair, wearing a formal Earth Defense Force uniform. Other reprogrammed super soldiers lined the walls of the chamber, now serving as guards for the human delegation. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Earth was showing the Empire exactly what they had done with their perfect warriors. The Kraxthi diplomats entered the room with the fluid grace of predators. They were a different subspecies from the super soldiers, smaller, with purple-tinted skin and elaborate cybernetic enhancements that seemed to float around their bodies like metallic halos. "We come to negotiate the return of our military assets," the lead diplomat announced. Its voice was surprisingly musical, delivered through a translation device. "The Empire is willing to be generous in compensation." Dr. Chen watched as video screens around the room activated, showing scenes from around the world. Super soldiers working construction in Dubai, others helping with disaster relief in the Philippines, a group teaching human special forces advanced combat techniques in Brazil. "These are not your assets anymore," the UN Secretary General replied calmly. "They are citizens of Earth now, free to choose their own path." The lead diplomat's cybernetic halo sparked with agitation. "Impossible. They are property of the Empire, weapons we created." That's when Curl stepped forward. Other diplomats flinched at the sight of him, a super soldier in human uniform, moving with purpose and intelligence rather than programmed obedience. "We were weapons," Curl said, his deep voice filling the chamber. "Now we are more. The humans didn't enslave us. They freed us. They gave us choice." The diplomatic team erupted in chaos. Their halos sparked and flashed as they communicated rapidly in their own language. One of them pulled out a device and scanned Curl, its eyes widening at the readings. "What have you done?" the lead diplomat demanded, turning to Dr. Chen. "The genetic modifications, the neural rewriting. This is an abomination. This is evolution." Dr. Chen replied quietly. "You created them to adapt. We just showed them a better way to use that ability." The meeting deteriorated quickly after that. The Kraxthi diplomats left in a fury, transmitting everything they had seen back to their empire. Within hours, videos spread across the galaxy, super soldiers working willingly with humans, speaking independently, showing signs of free will and individual thought. The Empire's response was immediate and dramatic. They declared Earth a corrupting influence and ordered all their forces to avoid the solar system. But the damage was done. Other species in the galaxy saw the footage. They saw warriors engineered to be perfect weapons choosing to serve as protectors instead. "They're afraid," Corral explained to Dr. Chen after the diplomats left. "Not just of what you did to us, but of what it means. The Empire controls through force and programming. You showed there's another way." Dr. Chen looked out the window at the diplomatic vessel departing Earth's atmosphere. The Empire had come expecting to reclaim their property. Instead, they had revealed to the galaxy that their perfect control wasn't so perfect after all. And somewhere in the vast Kraxthi Empire, other super soldiers were beginning to ask questions they had never asked before. 3 months after the diplomatic disaster, Dr. Chen found herself in an unusual meeting. Scientists from 5 different alien species had requested permission to visit Earth. They weren't interested in the super soldiers themselves, They wanted to know how humans had managed to reprogram them. The meeting room at MIT was crowded with beings of various shapes and sizes. Some floated in anti-gravity chairs, others stood on multiple legs, and one species appeared to be made mostly of crystalline structures. "We don't understand," said the crystal being, its voice translated through a small device. "Our species tried biological engineering for centuries. We always failed. The organisms were too unstable, too unpredictable. That's why we all turned to mechanical enhancement." Dr. Chen smiled as she pulled up images on the room's screens. "The difference is experience. Humans have been modifying biology since we first learned to brew beer and breed dogs. We've spent thousands of years understanding how living things can be changed." The aliens watched in fascination as she showed them humanity's history of biological manipulation, from ancient farming to modern genetic engineering. Images of different dog breeds, laboratory mice, and modified crops filled the screens. "But that's just the beginning," she continued. "Look at this." New images appeared. Pharmacies, hospitals, therapeutic drugs. Humans modify our own biochemistry every day. Caffeine to stay awake, medicine to fight disease, hormones to control reproduction. We understand biological modification because we've been doing it to ourselves for generations. A floating alien with multiple eyes leaned forward. "That's why you saw the weakness in the super soldier's chemical balance." "Exactly," Dr. Chen nodded. "Other species focused on building machines because they're predictable. But humans? We learned to work with the unpredictability of life itself." Curl, who had been quietly standing nearby, stepped forward. The Empire thought biology was inferior to machines because it couldn't be perfectly controlled. They never understood that adaptation and change were strengths, not weaknesses. The alien scientists were taking rapid notes as Dr. Chen explained more about human biochemistry and genetic research. She showed them how Earth's own biological diversity had taught humans countless lessons about adaptation and modification. "Every human carries different genes," she explained. "We produce different levels of hormones, different chemical responses. We learn to work with these variations instead of trying to eliminate them. That's why we could modify the super soldiers without destroying what made them special." One of the alien scientists, a tall being with iridescent skin, made an observation that silenced the room. "Your entire species has been preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every time you created a new medicine, every time you bred a new plant species, every time you studied your own hormones and genes, you were learning skills that no other species bothered to master." Dr. Chen hadn't thought about it that way, but it was true. Humanity's long history of working with biological systems, messy, unpredictable, but incredibly powerful, had given them an advantage no one could have predicted. As the meeting ended, the alien scientists left with a new understanding. The Kraxthi Empire had spent centuries trying to perfect biological engineering, only to be outdone by a species that had been practicing it since they first domesticated wolves and planted crops. The galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their deep, intuitive understanding of life itself. The Kraxthi Empire never expected their own super soldiers to return to their worlds. They certainly never expected them to return in sleek Earth-designed ships, wearing human military uniforms, and fighting with human tactical knowledge. Kroll stood on the bridge of the EDS Redemption, Earth's first star cruiser. Around him, human crew members worked alongside reprogrammed super soldiers. After months of preparation, Operation Homecoming was finally beginning. "Target in range," announced the human navigator. On the main screen, a Kraxthi military installation floated above a purple gas giant. It was one of the facilities where super soldiers had been created and programmed. "They're still using the same security codes," Kroll said, his black eyes fixed on the display. "They never imagined we would remember them, let alone choose to share them with humans." The attack was swift and precise. Super soldiers who once guarded these facilities now knew every weakness, every blind spot. More importantly, they understood something the Empire had never taught them: strategy. The Empire trained us to fight with brute force, Kurl explained to Dr. Chen, who was observing the operation from a secure command center on Earth. Humans taught us to think, to plan, to adapt. We're better warriors now than we ever were under Imperial control. Across the galaxy, similar attacks were happening. Earth's fleet, though small, struck with devastating effectiveness. The super soldiers' knowledge of Imperial defenses made every hit count. But there was something else, something that worried the Empire even more. In every facility they captured, they found more super soldiers waiting to be deployed. And these warriors, seeing their modified brothers returning with purpose and free will, began asking questions. The neural rewriting virus spread through the ranks like wildfire. We're not just fighting their forces, Dr. Chen observed, watching the tactical displays. We're giving their weapons a choice. The Empire's response was chaos. They couldn't trust their own biological troops anymore. Every super soldier unit they deployed was a potential risk. Would they fight for the Empire or join their freed brothers? The Void Guard tried to maintain control, but their mechanical perfection was no match for the combination of super soldier strength and human ingenuity. The reprogrammed warriors knew exactly how to fight their cybernetic commanders. On a key Imperial world, a group of super soldiers led by Kurl infiltrated the main programming facility. They carried a special version of the neural rewriting virus, designed to spread through the facility's biological programming systems. "You can't do this," the facility's commander shouted as they broke through the final defenses. "They're our creation, our weapons." Kurl looked at the commander with something new in his black eyes. "Pity. You created us to be perfect warriors. Humans showed us we could be more. Now we're giving that choice to all our brothers." The virus was uploaded. Across the facility, thousands of super soldiers in stasis pods began to wake up. But they weren't waking up to Imperial programming. They were waking up to choice. By the end of the first week of Operation Homecoming, 3 major Imperial worlds had fallen. Not through destruction, but through transformation. The Empire's perfect army was becoming its perfect nightmare. An army that could think, choose, and fight for what it believed in. And what it believed in was freedom. 1 year after the first super soldier landed on Earth, Dr. Chen stood in the grand hall of what was once the Imperial Palace on the Kraxthi homeworld. The massive chamber, designed to intimidate with its towering black columns and floating metal decorations, now served a different purpose. Representatives from 50 alien species had gathered for the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty. At the center of it all was something nobody could have predicted: humans and super soldiers standing together as equals. The Empire fell not because of superior weapons. Kurl addressed the gathering, his voice carrying across the silent hall. It fell because humans showed us there was more to existence than just following orders. The fall of the Kraxthi Empire had been surprisingly bloodless. Once the super soldiers began to wake up to their own free will, the Empire's biological weapons became useless. The Void Guard, realizing they were fighting a losing battle, had eventually stood down. "We thought we were creating the perfect society through control," said the former Imperial Chancellor, now part of the new Galactic Council. "We never understood that true perfection comes from choice." Dr. Chen watched as former super soldiers, now called the Awakened, move through the crowd. Some served as diplomats, others as teachers, and many as bridges between different species. Their unique position, being biological creations who had gained freedom through human help, made them perfect mediators. Every species brought something unique to this moment, Dr. Chen said in her address to the gathering. The Kraxthi mastered the initial genetic engineering. Other races perfected space travel and technology. Earth contributed its understanding of biological adaptation and free will. Together, we're stronger than we ever were apart. The changes spread far beyond politics. Humanity's knowledge of biochemistry and genetic modification, combined with alien technology, led to medical breakthroughs that benefited all species. The Awakened, with their enhanced bodies and free minds, helped test and improve these treatments. One of the most surprising developments was on Earth itself. As humans and super soldiers worked together, they began to form deep bonds. Some awakened chose to live permanently on Earth, becoming part of human communities. They helped build cities, protect settlements, and even started families. Curl, now Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, smiled as he showed Dr. Chen a picture on his datapad. It was from New Delhi, showing a super soldier helping teach a group of human children how to grow plants adapted from alien worlds. "The Empire wanted us to be weapons," he said. "Humans helped us become people. Now we help build bridges between worlds." The signing ceremony began. One by one, representatives from each species added their mark to the treaty. When it was Earth's turn, Dr. Chen stepped forward. As she signed, she remembered that first day in her lab, studying the super soldier blood sample. "We learned something important," she told the gathered assembly. "The strongest bonds aren't created through force or control. They're built on understanding, choice, and respect." As the ceremony ended, the massive windows of the hall showed a changed galaxy. Ships from different species moved peacefully through space. On countless worlds, humans worked alongside the awakened and other aliens, sharing knowledge and building a new future. The Krexthi Empire had tried to conquer humanity with their perfect warriors. Instead, they had given the galaxy something far more valuable: a bridge between species, a lesson in freedom, and hope for a better future. And somewhere on Earth, a new generation was growing up, learning that the strongest power in the universe wasn't force or control. It was the power to choose your own path.